AI is transforming customer service. It's real and it works. And with Finn, we've built the #1 AI agent for customer service. We're seeing lots of cases where it's solving up to 90% of real queries for real businesses. This includes the real-world complex stuff like issuing a refund or cancelling an order. And we also see it when Finn goes up against competitors. It's top of all the performance benchmarks, top of the G2 leaderboard, and if you're not happy, we'll refund you up to $1 million, which I think says it all. Check it out for yourself at fin.ai.
You're great at protecting your data, but lots of places could still expose you to identity theft.
I thought it was safe.
If that happens, LifeLock gives you a US-based restoration agent who will stick by your side from start to finish. Phone calls, filing documentation, preparing insurance claims, your agent handles it all. In fact, we're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Isn't it nice to have someone like that on your side? Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/Pandora. Terms apply.
It's Saturday the 16th of May. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw twists and turns as Labour faces a leadership contest. History made after the Welsh elections, Donald Trump on a trade mission to China, and BAFTA wins for celebrity traders and adolescents.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Last weekend saw the results of the local elections across England roll in, and there was really no good news for the government. The final results saw massive Labour losses, with Reform the big winners, picking up almost 1,500 seats. The Lib Dems and the Greens had mixed results, with the Greens making some headway in London, with Green mayors elected in Hackney and Lewisham. The Tories had one bright spot, winning Westminster Council, but otherwise failed to impress. The results had an immediate impact, with at least 40 Labour MPs have called on him to quit, and former Deputy Leader Angela Rayner warning that Starmer needs to meet the moment. Sunday saw Labour backbencher Catherine West suggesting she would be happy to face the PM in a leadership contest.
And the reason I am doing that is not for me, it's for working people, because Labour is the only party that can beat Reform. We are the only national force that can take on reform across the whole of the UK.
And General Secretary of Unite, Sharon Graham, said it's clear that Labour under Starmer has lost the common touch.
What we've seen is that Labour has abandoned the working class, and now the working class has absolutely abandoned Labour. There is no God-given right for Labour to exist, and what they want to do and need to do very, very quickly is to change direction.
Monday saw Prime Minister Keir Starmer put his best foot forward in an attempt to save his job. The PM took to the podium to lay out his vision and declare that he was ready to fight for the keys to Downing Street.
I know that people are frustrated by the state of Britain, frustrated with me. I know I have my doubters. And I know I need to prove them wrong, and I will.
His speech was enough for a Labour backbencher and former Minister Catherine West to withdraw her leadership challenge. But things weren't made any easier as a succession of MPs quit as ministerial aides across Monday, building more pressure on the PM. Deputy Leader of the party, Lucy Powell, was impressed by Starmer's speech.
I thought that was a really personal and a really good speech that set out very clearly what motivates him. What motivates this Labour government is to fundamentally break up the status quo so that this country works in the interests of ordinary working people.
Things didn't get any easier as former Deputy Leader Angela Rayner used a speech at the Communication Workers Union conference to nail her colours to the mast and call for change.
We as a party have to do better than this. And we can start by accepting that Andy Burnham should never have been blocked. It was a mistake that the leadership of our party should put right.
Tuesday was another difficult time for Prime Minister Keir Starmer as a cabinet meeting at Downing Street brought the internal war in Labour into the open. 4 ministers resigned, including Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, even as the PM was accepting responsibility for last week's poor election results and setting out his intention to get on with governing the country. Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden was firmly backing the PM.
Prime Minister is going to continue with his job, as he should.
as the public will expect him to do.
More than 100 MPs were publicly backing Starmer, and he was due to have a face-to-face with possible leadership rival Health Secretary Wes Streeting on Wednesday morning. House Secretary Steve Reid said until a former leadership challenge is announced, it's business as usual.
The Prime Minister has my full support. The Labour Party has a process for triggering a leadership election. That has not happened. So we all intend to get on with our jobs.
There was no sign of any easing in the tension over the future of Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Wednesday. Health Secretary Wes Streeting attended Downing Street for a coffee with the PM that lasted about 16 minutes. That was intended to see off a leadership challenge from Streeting, but it wasn't clear what the Health Secretary was planning to do. Meanwhile, Wednesday also saw the King's speech to formally mark the opening ceremony of the new session of Parliament. But even amidst the pomp and ceremony, as the black rod banged on the chamber door, someone couldn't help themselves.
Not now, Andy. Black Rock, open the door.
The King himself made no reference to the impending arrival of Andy Burnham, instead detailing up to 30 new pieces of legislation that may or may not be put before Parliament. His Majesty also took a moment to recognise the current state of chaos in the world.
An increasingly dangerous and volatile world threatens the United Kingdom. My government will respond to this world with strength and aim to create a country that is fair for all.
With the prospect of leadership contest looming, the Prime Minister and his allies spent much of Wednesday trying to rally support, with Chancellor Rachel Reeves amongst those deployed to persuade MPs that this is a bad time for a leadership election. As the new parliamentary session got underway, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch wasn't making things any easier, attacking Labour for slow progress on the NHS and taking the opportunity to ping Wes Streeting at the same time.
They have learnt no lessons. All we have is a load of re-announced policies. Scrapping NHS England, something the Prime Minister announced 14 months ago. But then I suppose the Health Secretary has been a bit distracted lately, hasn't he?
The Prime Minister was in fighting form, however, taking the gloves off as he fought his corner against the Tory leader.
Our parties both had tough results in the local elections last week. The difference is, she hasn't noticed. There's another difference, Mr. Speaker. We are in government and they are no longer even the opposition.
Thursday saw plenty of fresh twists and turns in this week's episode of the Labour leadership drama. Firstly, former Deputy Leader Angela Rayner popped up on ITV to announce the stamp duty issue, which had caused her resignation, has now been resolved, and says she has been fully cleared by tax authorities.
I've never wanted to avoid paying my tax, and for me that was the most distressing thing, is that people felt that I was tax dodging or trying to set up trusts to avoid tax, or being careless by not taking the appropriate advice, and HMRC have concluded that isn't the case. The
Health Secretary Wes Streeting resigned his position but didn't immediately announce that he was making a leadership bid. However, his move triggered a response from the Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, who has finally convinced an MP to step down and create a by-election which could allow his return to Westminster and enter the leadership race. The MP is Josh Simons, who currently holds the seat of Makerfield, but with a majority of only 6,000, it's not clear that Andy Burnham will win the by-election. Regardless, Number 10 have said they will block his attempt to become an MP this time. Pat McFadden was live on Sky News when the announcement was made.
I think there's a lot of steps to go here and a lot of assumptions. And the biggest one being that an MP can create a by-election, which isn't necessary. In the past, that has proven to be a risky thing to do. It is the voters of Makerfield who will decide who the next MP is.
Local elections weren't the only bad news for Labour last weekend, as the party also faced disastrous results in the devolved Parliament elections. Labour in Wales saw an almost complete collapse, with party leader Ellen Morgan, the First Minister, losing her seat. Reform made strong progress in Wales, winning 34 seats, just behind Plaid Cymru, who won 43 seats but finished just short of an overall majority. The first likely new Minister of Plaid Cymru, Rian Ap Iorwerth, says he's confident he can assemble a coalition.
We're a parliament where there has never been an overall majority. That will still be the case. And now we know, but that means that the need for people to come together and putting that into action, because this has all got to be about the people of Wales.
In Scotland, the SNP were once again victorious for the 5th election in a row, but also failed to secure a majority. SNP's Westminster leader Stephen Flynn believes it's time for a new look at Scottish independence.
I think it's perfectly reasonable, based upon the result of the election, to make clear to Westminster that the people of Scotland should have the chance and the opportunity to decide their own future.
While Prime Minister Keir Starmer was battling to hold on to his job in London, Rian Apurath was taking up his new job in Cardiff. He's now officially First Minister of Wales and made history as Plaid Cymru's first leader to take on the role, as he was confirmed with 44 votes in the Welsh Senate. He did have to wait about 3 hours before King Charles finally formally signed the royal warrant to validate the vote, and then he was sworn in by Welsh High Court Judge Justice Stacey. There was good wishes from Welsh Minister Joe Stevens and former First Minister Ellen Morgan. Breen said that Tuesday marked an historic day for the Welsh nation.
Something has stirred in the soul of Wales. A new confidence, a new hope, a new broader horizon, never to be narrowed again by the naysayers with other priorities in other places.
While Labour appear to be engaged in a civil war over their leadership, there is a pretty bright spotlight being shone on Reform leader Nigel Farage. Reporting from The Guardian just before the local elections revealed that the Brexiter had received an unannounced £5 million donation from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne. Farage initially said that the donation was to provide him with lifelong security and that the donation was made before he decided to run for election to Parliament. However, on Thursday, that story shifted as it became apparent the donation was used in part to buy a £1.4 million house in Clacton, which has now sparked an unofficial parliamentary investigation. Nigel now says the money was simply a gesture of thanks.
This was given to me on an unconditional basis, but frankly, it was given as a reward for campaigning for Brexit for 27 years. I can't be bought by anybody. No, not anybody. Not even Elon Musk.
The ceasefire in the Middle East between the US, Israel and Iran remained on shaky ground this week, although last Sunday night did see Iran formally respond to the latest peace proposal. Iranian state TV announced that its response had been passed to the Pakistani negotiators, but it wasn't immediately clear what it might contain, and Donald Trump was quick to call the response totally unacceptable. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to CBS News, and he offered more clarity than either the Americans or the Iranians on whether or not the war is actually over.
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. And there's work to be done. Any chance of peace in the Middle East seemed to recede further on Monday as US President Donald Trump flatly rejected the latest peace proposal from Iran's leadership. The details of the proposal, which was delivered to Pakistani negotiators on Sunday, are still not known, and Iran wasn't happy at Trump's response. Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, warned that if America resumes hostilities, the Iranian armed forces are ready to deliver what he called a lesson-teaching response. Trump is due to fly to Beijing this week to meet with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, but he says the prospects of the continuation of the ceasefire is currently at 1%.
It's unbelievably weak. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support.
Donald Trump headed to China on Tuesday to meet with Chinese Premier Xi Jinping in Beijing for a two-day summit, with the war in the Middle East still dragging on and with no clear prospect of a peace agreement. Trump's day won't have been improved by the latest inflation figures, which showed a dramatic jump of 3.8%, largely driven by the rise in energy costs caused by his war in the Middle East. He was unconcerned, however, declaring that he didn't think of the average American's financial situation and bragging about his refurbishment works at the White House.
This place was not properly taken care of. I was told by my wife, you have to act presidential, so don't use foul language. I won't. Therefore, normally I would have said it was a shit house, but I don't want to say that.
40 defence ministers met on Tuesday to front-load security and assistance to help Gulf states clear the strait and reopen it, with the UK committed to sending the HMS Dragon along with drones and jets. Meanwhile, US spending on the 11-week war rose again to $29 billion, but a combative Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, was refusing to concede that the US strategy had failed as he addressed a Senate Budget Committee.
Here we are in a committee in the United States Senate, 74 days in, and you're talking about strategic loss. We have the ability to defeat a 47-year threat. We have more leverage than we've ever had. And you're talking about a strategic loss?
US President Trump didn't travel alone, bringing a plane load of American CEOs, including Nvidia's Jensen Huang, Elon Musk and Tim Cook, who Trump always refers to as Tim Apple in his social media posts. The intention is to do a big trade deal open with the new market in China for American tech, but the Chinese may have different ideas. The subject of the war in Iran was also on the table, as there's been no progress in the Strait of Hormuz. The US President was given the full diplomatic treatment with a 21-gun salute and cheering children as he entered the Great Hall of the People in Beijing with the Chinese leader, and he was on his best behaviour.
We're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody, you're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth.
Donald Trump departed from China on Friday after a 2-day visit. He was hosted a state dinner and then had lunch and further talks with the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping before his departure. The US President was clearly impressed by the visit and made sure to praise his host in a lavish toast at the official state dinner.
I'd now like to raise a glass and propose a toast to the rich and enduring ties between the American and Chinese people. It's a very special relationship, and I want to thank you again. This has been an amazing period of time. Thank you, President Xi.
It's not clear how much progress has been made, although the topic of Taiwan and delaying or cancelling US arms sales was clearly on the agenda, while the Chinese leader also appeared to refer to the US as a declining power. US officials reported that trade deals had been done for agricultural products and Boeing aircraft, but it wasn't clear what the details of those deals are. Fox News host Sean Hannity was in China with Trump, and he pressed the president on whether China would help nudge Iran towards a peace deal, but Donald seemed more interested in selling the Chinese American oil.
They get a lot of their oil, 40% of their oil from that location. They've agreed they want to buy oil from the United States. They're going to go to Texas. We're going to start sending Chinese ships to Texas and to Louisiana and to Alaska. And I think that was another thing that was agreed to. That's a big thing.
EU foreign ministers met in Brussels on Monday to discuss the ongoing crisis in the Middle East and Russia's war in Ukraine. The bloc had agreed to work more closely with Gulf allies and to front-load security and defence cooperation in the Strait of Hormuz. On Ukraine, EU leaders were unified in rejecting Vladimir Putin's suggestion of former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder as an impartial chair for any future peace talks. Schroeder is seen as a Putin-friendly candidate who has served on the board of Russian oil companies and never explicitly condemned the war in Ukraine. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says the situation on the battlefield has shifted and that Putin's position is continuing to weaken.
Ukraine kept to the ceasefire, previously offered ceasefires unconditionally. Russia didn't really stand up to this.
Leaders of the Baltic states and Central Europe met in Bucharest on Wednesday for what is known as the B9 summit. They were joined by Ukraine President Zelensky, whose country has been under escalating drone attacks from Russia, who have now switched to launching attacks during daylight hours, which is causing increasing casualty levels. At least 6 people were killed in an attack on Wednesday as over 800 drones were launched at targets across Ukraine. The group confirmed their support for Ukraine, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who attended the conference, says the need for action is urgent.
Today we discussed with President Volodymyr Zelensky what more we can do. A strong Ukraine today and a strong Ukraine for the future is how Russian aggression can be stopped. The war isn't waiting for us. The time for action is now.
Donald Trump may have been busy talking up the trade deals in China, but his inability to bring the war in Ukraine or the war in the Middle East to an end is becoming a global problem. Ukraine has been blitzed by Russia over the last 48 hours with prolonged drone and missile attacks on targets all across the country, with more than 22 killed and hundreds injured. Meanwhile, Israel continues to strike targets in Gaza and Lebanon, and there's been no progress at all with Trump's war on Iran. Once again, Pope Leo spoke out on the ongoing global crisis, warning that increasing defence spending was taking resources from those who are most in need.
Let us not brand defence a rearmament that increases tensions and insecurity, impoverishes investments in education and health, betrays trust in diplomacy, and enriches elites who care nothing for the common good.
Still to come on the Standout 7 in association with Metro, the big winners from the BAFTAs, and we introduce you to Dr. Harrison Ford.
Right after this.
You've got social dialed in. Search is doing its thing. So why do your marketing results look the same as 6 months ago? That's because you're fishing in the same pond as everyone else. Podcast listeners are a different audience entirely. More engaged, harder to reach through traditional channels, and ready to act when someone they trust makes a recommendation. We're Acast, and we put them right in front of you. Browse thousands of the world's leading podcasts, book host reads or run your own ads, and track every conversion in real time. Same skills you already have, brand new results. Acast. Acast.com/advertise.
Welcome back.
The virus-stricken cruise ship MV Hondius finally arrived in Tenerife last Sunday morning. The vessel, which had been at the centre of an outbreak of hantavirus, was greeted by medical teams in hazmat suits who escorted the remaining passengers from the vessel and into quarantine. 3 people died on the ship, at least 2 of whom were confirmed to have the virus, which appears to be the Andes version of the disease and is spread by close personal contact. Many of the passengers from the ship have now been repatriated, including British, French and Irish passengers, who will all have to remain in quarantine for at least 42 days. Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, was on site in Tenerife to offer reassurance to the world's media.
This is not another COVID, and the risk to the public is low. So they shouldn't be scared and they shouldn't panic.
The final 2 flights of passengers from the virus-stricken cruise ship of the MV Hondius landed in Holland on Monday. The number of cases in the hantavirus outbreak now stands at 9, with 2 more suspected, and most of the passengers now face a lengthy stay in quarantine as symptoms can take up to 6 weeks to develop. Despite growing case numbers, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, was still offering reassurance on Tuesday, although he also had a warning that more cases should still be expected.
Because of the interaction, we would expect more cases because of some of what happened during the travel actually.
Sunday night saw the BAFTAs take place at the Royal Albert Hall, hosted by Taskmaster's Greg Davies. The evening was dominated by Netflix drama Adolescence, which won 4 awards on the night, with Amandaland picking up Best Scripted Comedy. The Celebrity Traders won for Reality TV Show, and also the most memorable moment for Alan Carr's dramatic victory. Mary Berry was presented with a BAFTA fellowship and says at 91 that she's just started a YouTube channel. Adolescence star Owen Cooper also had some words of wisdom.
So, in my eyes, I think you only need 3 things to succeed in life. You need 1, an obsession, 2, a dream, and 3, the Beatles. So thank you so much for that.
The BBC was back in the spotlight on Monday after the BAFTA Awards, but not about swearing this time, though. The film BAFTAs had seen controversy over the failure to bleep expletives shouted by Tourette's syndrome campaigner John Davidson. Sunday night's awards included a current affairs BAFTA for the documentary Gaza Doctors Under Attack, but the show, which was originally commissioned by the BBC, was never broadcast by the network. It was shelved over impartiality concerns, but picked up by Channel 4, who added a BAFTA to their collection for their willingness to support the show. There was also a deeply emotional moment as Martin Lewis accepted his Special Recognition BAFTA for his work as a consumer champion.
For 6 years, barring school, I barely left the house. And now I'm picking up a BAFTA. So to all those of you out there struggling with your own demons, know this: life can be transformed. It can get better.
Harrison Ford seems to be enjoying his old age. He's busier than ever, from starring in hit Apple TV show Shrinking to a long-term creative collaboration with Scottish premium whiskey brand Glenmorangie. Apart from all that, he was awarded an honorary doctorate at Arizona University on Monday. He is now officially a Doctor of Arts and Humane Letters. The doctorate was awarded in part on the basis of his long-time work as an environmental campaigner, and he has had some words of wisdom for his fellow graduates.
Nature doesn't need people. People need nature to survive. A healthy natural world provides free services to mankind that we cannot provide for ourselves.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
While every other channel is fighting for your customers' attention, podcasts are where they've already given it. No one accidentally listens to a podcast for 45 minutes. They choose to be here. They trust the voice in their ears, and when that voice talks about your brand, it doesn't sound like advertising. It sounds like a recommendation from a friend. Acast gives you that trust at scale. Digital precision, host-read authenticity, and performance data that proves it worked. Don't fight for attention. Buy it with Acast. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.